welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I hope you're all doing very, very well. I'm feeling quite 90s today. It's this shirt. This shirt reminds me so much of Neil Buchanan from Art Attack. If you're from the UK and are my age, you remember Neil Buchanan. But I don't, yeah, it just reminds me so much of Neil Buchanan. Bit warmer today. I'm wearing like a short sleeve top underneath this. For the first time in my, like, in what feels like forever, I haven't got a jumper on. Anyway, fashion chat over. Today's video is all about DNF in books. DNF, what does that stand for? Did not finish. And this is something that some people do, some people don't do, some people slog their way through books. I used to be one of those people. But I've collated here 10 reasons why I might DNF a book, why I might put a book down and think, nah, I'm not going to carry on reading that. And it was just nice, really, fortuitous, let's say, that as I was writing down all these reasons, I was like, bloody hell, there's 10 of these, this would be a really good idea. I actually quite enjoyed sitting down and thinking about it, because I was like, think about this book, why did you put that book down? Think about this book, why didn't you go back to that book? And all of the reasons, and I've collated them. So I would be very, very interested to hear, firstly, if you do DNF books, or if you just absolutely slog through them, if you've got any rules you set yourself or anything like that. I used to give a book 100 pages. Well, first of all, I used to absolutely slog through books, even if I weren't enjoying them. Then I used to give them 100 pages. Then I used to give them 50 pages. Now I'm just free to finish them or put them down whenever I don't. If I'm not enjoying it, I'll just put it down. But let's get into the reasons. Now, there's 10 of them, as I said. I keep saying that. And they're in no particular order, just the order in which I've written them down. So number one is if something is, a book topic is about something that I am going through in real life, and it just feels a bit too close to home. So yeah, if it's mirroring something that's potentially happening to me in real life, then that is a reason I would put a book down and not go back to it and not read it. I was trying to think of an example of this because I didn't want to be like, because obviously some of these things are pretty personal, and the best one I could sort of like most generic one I could come up with that definitely applied to myself would be like if I'm having like a bad mental health day or a bad mental health period, then reading a book about someone who is in the throes of a bad mental health period is not helpful to me, so I wouldn't read that. And also I guess this can also be reflected in during lockdown or during at the height of the pandemic, when there was obviously there's a lot of books out there about sort of pandemics and illnesses and things like that, and not being able to read that whilst that was going on. So that is reason number one. Number two is similar to a better book that I have read recently or am currently reading. Now I am going through a little bit of that at the moment because I've been considering DNFing the Atlas 6, which is a book I'm reading at the moment. It's a dark academia book set at a school with students studying, and I've just finished Babel by R.F. Kuang, which I absolutely loved, and surely, well, I mean, it's the best book I've read this year so far. Really, really loved it. And I don't know if it's because I enjoyed that book so much, but I'm finding, I'm comparing the Atlas 6 a lot to that book, thinking, oh, well, I prefer this bit in that bit, oh, well, I would prefer that bit. So yeah, sometimes it's worth sort of like putting a book down where if you've just read a book, and particularly if you loved that book, then a similar book's got a lot to live up to. I didn't realise when I picked up the Atlas 6 that it would maybe have similar themes to it, but it might be an idea that it might be something that I do where I put down a book and I think I will give that book a better chance another time. Now, I'm gonna get, in the case of the Atlas 6, which is quite helpful that I've got a prime example for this, I think I'm gonna give it another day, because I feel like there's a little bit of a turning point today where I was like, oh, maybe this is slightly different and maybe I will be able to bond with it a little bit more. So there we go, that's reason three. Reason two. Reason three, it's a simple one, it's fatphobia. So I often don't read women's contemporary fiction because there's so much fat phobia in those books. So any books that are going to allude to someone being fat and that being a negative thing, I'm just not interested. I remember reading this particularly, like, because when I read women's contemporary fiction or romance books, which I don't do often, it tends to be around Christmas time, because that's the time that I pick up these sort of like Christmassy books and Christmas at the Cupcake Cafe and Christmas book shops and all this sort of thing. And one book I remember so vividly about somebody saying, oh, I'm so glad I live in Edinburgh because it means I can like I can walk up and down the hills and burn off all the lattes that I've been drinking and that sort of thing. And I just think, I haven't got time for that. That's forced upon us enough without opting to read books that include that sort of thing as well. So yeah, that fatphobia, it's a simple, just a no-no for me. Number four is that I'm not looking forward to picking it up. So yeah, if I've been reading a book for a while and every time I'm going back to it I think, I might read something else. I might read something else. After a period of time, I might think, I think it's time to give that book, like to not bother with that book anymore. Because if you're not looking forward to something, then you're never gonna gravitate towards it. So I was thinking about this with David with books. So because David reads a lot less than I do, his average reading is probably about eight books a year maybe, but some of these books he takes literal months to read because he's reading like a paragraph here and then like 2 weeks later another paragraph, and then maybe 2 days in a row he'll read two paragraphs, 2 chapters or something like that. And if I'm doing that with a book, I know I'm not bonding with it, and I know that I'm using the word bonding here like we're speed dating, but I know it's just not worth me investing my time in that. Number 5 is books that celebrate harmful views or opinions that are not my own. Now, this comes with a bit of a caveat because I'm not object to reading books about other people who have different views or opinions to my own, or characters within books who have harmful opinions or views or do harmful actions. But if within books those sort of things are celebrated, then that is not for me at all, because I can't sort of put myself in that mindset. And also it's a bit of sort of like self-protection, so I would get myself very cross about things. Particularly it links in with the fatphobia, I guess. But yeah, I'm all for reading about people's different views and opinions, but not if those views or opinions are harmful and are celebrated. So that's another reason. Number 6 is if there's consistent mistypes or bad formatting, and this comes down to bad editing. So it might be that like maybe the first time I think, oh well, that's not annoying, or like the wrong word is used or something like that. I think, oh well, that's the first time, that might happen. And then read it again and I think, oh, that's annoying that that's happened a second time. And then another time and I think, oh, actually, I don't know if I'm going to be able to carry on reading this because it's annoying me so much. So yeah, that's down to editors. And I actually don't apply that rule when I'm reading proof copies, because a lot of these proof copies books haven't had their final edit and things like that. And that's what these proof copies books are for, to sort of like identify maybe formatting issues or misspells and things like that. Something else that links in with this is if like a phrase is used many times, and I remember reading a YA book, and I can't remember what YA book it was, but they said something that comes up all the time in these YA books is a thing where somebody says she let go of a breath she didn't know she was holding. And I remember reading a YA book which wasn't even that long and thinking, that is the 6th time she has let go of a breath she didn't know she was holding. This is no longer for me. So yeah, sort of repetition, unnecessary repetition and stuff like that. Not for me, I would abandon. Number 7 applies just to audiobooks, and that's if I don't like the narrator. Now, if I'm DNFing an audiobook, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to come back to that book in print form and enjoy it that way. But yeah, I really think a narrator can make or break a book for me. Things that I don't like when I'm listening to audiobooks are slow narrators. I think because I'm a very fast talker, she says, talking slowly, I feel like, oh god, no, I'm not going to do that. And if I can't, if I speed it up and it sounds like, because I can listen to things sped up, but I don't want it to sound like, if someone's a very slow talker, sometimes when you speed it up, that will like solve the problem. But sometimes it feels like it's like some of the parts of the words are languished over and it's a bit jarring and jolting. So yeah, slow narrators can't get into. Narrators that sound sort of robotic, I'm really not into that either. And I would give up on that, and I sort of know instantly. So it's called a DNF. I would call that a DNF. I don't log my DNFs either, but if I was listening to a book and like literally within about 3 minutes I think, nah, I'm not going to get on with this narrator. So narrator problems and audiobooks. Number 8 would be I would DNF a book if it's not fitting with my reading plans and I know I won't return to it. So the best example I can think of this is in December. I read all Christmas books for the month of December, which is lovely because I like to read Christmas. I like to celebrate Christmas. So any books that I am reading towards the end of November that I don't finish in time for December, and I think, God, am I actually going to return to that? Probably not. I would DNF that book. And also, the other end of December, when I get to the end of December and I think, oh, well, I've still got 3 Christmas books on the go and it's January now, I'm not interested in reading any Christmas books, they all get DNF'd as well. So yeah, but that's also happened with like, if I'm doing reading projects. So for example, I've done projects for like June Austen, where I've read all Jane Austen books, and June Eyre, where I read Jane Eyre books. This year I'm doing Augusta Christie, where I'm reading Agatha Christie books and retellings of Agatha Christie. And yeah, so on the run up to that, I'm really trying to get like everything finished so that I can start these reading project books, and then at the end I'm like probably a bit bored of it by the end, and I think I can't be bothered with this anymore. So yeah, those sort of things. So if I'm in the middle or the beginning or the end of a reading project, books may well get DNF'd. Number 8 is bored by it, if it's actually boring me. And I suppose that sort of links in a little bit with if I'm not looking forward to picking it up. But I don't slog through books like I used to. The only book that I would slog through, and it rarely feels like a slog, is for my Patreon book club, and that's because it's a book club that I run. If I was part of a book club and I wasn't enjoying a book, I would not finish it. But as I run the book club, I need to be able to have finished the book so that I can write the questions, etc. So yeah, that's the only time that I'll slog through a book in order to answer the questions. But yeah, if it's boring me, nah. And then the last one, excuse me. And then the last one is that if the characters are annoying me, and this might be something so like unacknowledged privilege, that really annoys me. Sort of whining, again linking in with unacknowledged privilege and things like that. And I can stand it to a certain extent if there's going to be like a character arc and things like that. But sometimes I just think, nah, this person is not for me. I would not get on with this person in real life. I'm not going to spend any of my reading time with this person. So there we go, 10 reasons why I might DNF a book. Would love to hear if you are DNFers, if you will finish that book to the very bitter end, and if you are a DNFer, then why are some of the reasons that you DNF a book? Would be very, very interested to hear. And I'll see you all again soon for another Richie video.